I'm Renee with Martha and Me, and today the project I'm going to show you is going to be a mug rug. And you just put your coffee cup on it, coffee mug on it, tea cup or tea mug, or your tall, cold drink on it. And it'll absorb the moisture and keep it from harming your surface. So to do that project, we're going to need yarn and the proper crochet hook for that yarn size-wise. I have chosen to use tube yarn because it's just easier for you to see as we're doing the project. It's easier for a beginner. It doesn't unravel. And because I've used this tube yarn, which is fairly big, I'm going to need a 6mm crochet hook. You can use any yarn you want. I do recommend cotton because it does absorb moisture, but you can use any yarn you want, but use the appropriate size hook for that yarn. We'll also need a scissor, 2 stitch markers, and a needle with a large eye. Usually tapestry needles have this large eye, and we'll use that later in the project to finish our project. So we are going to go straight into this. If you don't know the very basics, if you don't know the slip knot, if you don't know how to hold your yarn, if you don't know how to hold your hook, I'm going to put a link to a video below, and you can start there because you'll need to know how to do a slip knot, hold your yarn, and hold your hook. Now, make my slip knot. And we're going to chain approximately 14 chains. And to do a chain, you go down toward the palm of your hand, you push back toward your 3 back fingers there, and you go up. And what you've done is to capture that yarn, and that's called a yarn over, and then you pull it through the loop on your hook. And you just keep doing that until you have approximately 14. I have tested the tension and the way I crochet, and I need about 14. But we just want this approximately 4x4. So if you crochet with looser tension, you can do less stitches or do more stitches. But we just want approximately 4x4. So for me, that's going to be about 14. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do you notice as I do each one of these, I shift my hand up. I'm always holding right at the base of the loop that's on my hook. And then I can pull my hook up a little bit, and I'll have a nice little space to pull that through. So we'll just keep on going here. And I just keep shifting my hand up. It helps me so much to do that, to keep my stitches even. Now let's stop right here because I've been talking and I haven't been counting. And this does look like a good 4 inches, so that might be right, but you're going to want to know how to go back and count your stitches. So let's just do that. There's going to be always a loop on your hook, and we don't count that. And then no matter what you're doing, underneath the loop that's on the hook, there will be a series of V's, and these are always the top of whatever stitch you're making. This is a chain stitch, but you'll have these V's on the top of a single crochet, a double crochet, triple crochet. They'll all have this V, and you see how the V is. It's got 2 legs here, and that is the V. We call these legs, and we call this the V. So let's count those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oops, hold it. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and I actually have 15. But I'm going to keep that because it looks about the right width. It looks about 4 inches to me. This is very imprecise. So now I've done my row of chains. I'm going to, for the rest of this project, I'm going to do single crochets. And I'm going to start by going into the second stitch from the hook. I don't count the loop that's on the hook. That's not a stitch. I skip this first one and I'm going to go into the second one, and we do a single crochet like this. I go into the second stitch, I do my yarn over and pull it through, and then I have 2 on my hook, and I do another yarn over and I pull through both, and I've done my very first single crochet. And now on every single row without fail, I want you to put in a stitch marker in that first V that's underneath that loop, because that's the only way you're going to be able to tell when you get to the end of the row. You'll watch, it looks a little distorted and you won't be able to see that unless you have a marker. So we've made our first stitch. Now let's just go back. We go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both of those, and keep doing it. Into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both, and keep going. Once you get this, you can just go along here lickety-split, and it's very calming, very satisfying. If you have to pull out a little bit to kind of see where your stitches are, that helps to even out those stitches. Sometimes they're a little, one's big, one's little, that type of thing. But just pull it, give it a little gentle tug, and you can see it much easier so that you know where to go for your next stitch. And I'll go into my very last one on this row. And I have made my first complete row of single crochet. Give it a little tug and it just evens it out. It looks really pretty. So to go to the next row, you keep your hook and your yarn on your hook just as it is, and you just flip over your project and pick up your yarn again, and you're going to proceed. Now, for this next row and every other row will be exactly the same. You'll go into the very first single crochet stitch. And if you'll notice, these are single crochet, and we've got the V's. We've got the V's on the top. You can see them all along there. And so there are 2 legs to that V, and we are going to go under both of the legs of the V. So go into that, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And then remember, for every single row, we are going to put in a stitch marker so we'll know where that row will end as we come back. So let's go down to the end of this row, and I'll show you how that stitch marker has helped us. And if you go down this row, you'll know exactly what we're doing for the rest of the project. And this is so much easier at this point because you have something to hold on to, and you have a very obvious place to insert your hook. It's much more obvious in this single crochet where to put your hook, and you have something substantial to hold on to. So when you get this far, you'll say, oh wow, this is so much easier to hold. Whoops, see, I only went under one leg. I could feel that. So back out and go in again. Okay, now I know I have one more stitch to go into, even though this is not flat across the top, it's actually running down the side, because that's the way these first stitches do. They run down the side, and you might not identify them as a stitch if you hadn't had that stitch marker. So we do have the stitch marker, so I know I'm going to go right in here under those two legs of the V, pull through, and pull through two. And I finished that row. And so remember, we flip this, we go into the very first stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through two. And I have my stitch marker here that I can just undo and move up, because you do not, without fail, you do not want to miss putting that in, because it makes it so much easier. So you're going to go back and forth, doing exactly what we've just done until you get approximately 4 inches tall. And so I have gotten that far on this one, and we'll show you how to finish up. Do these last few stitches, and this is my very last stitch. Where do I go from here? Well, to make a knot, to tie this off, I'll start to make a chain stitch. So you remember with that, down under, pull, yarn over, and just pull through. But you're just going to keep on pulling. And then pull that tight, and you've made yourself a knot. I gave myself plenty of yarn here. You won't have this much yarn, and then you'll cut it off of your main ball of yarn. So let's cut it a reasonable length. These demo ones are done a specific way so that I can show you all these steps. Now the only thing left to do, I've got my 4x4. We're going to take our tapestry needle and we're going to thread it. And this is why the huge eye is so important, because it just threads so easily with the huge eye. And now the only thing we want to do is bury this within our project. And we go 3 directions so that it's nice and tight and doesn't unravel. You'll probably throw these in the wash, you'll be handling them, and they can come unraveled if you aren't careful. So what we're going to do is we're going to travel at least an inch in each direction. We're going to travel this way, come back, and go back so that it is buried and it is tight. So just pick a stitch and go under it. Travel underneath these stitches. Don't pull them too tight or you'll distort your project. But some of these are obvious how easy they go under. We don't want to go actually into the yarn. We want to go under the yarn, and you have to move it in, move it out to be able to do that. Let's go back this way. We can go down. Excuse me. We can go down. That's another direction. Doesn't have to be back and forth. Just so that there's a good tightness to the way you're going. And let's go another way. Okay, I've gone up, back, up, and now we'll cut off being very careful not to cut our actual stitches, that off. And we'll do the same with this. And this is what we wind up with. We have our mug rug.